Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. And in this video, I'm going to be going over this Typeform review. And so this video is going to be particularly useful for individuals who are deciding whether or not to use Typeform for their business. And so I've been using Typeform for about a year and a half now, and I must say that it's definitely one of the most user-friendly form builders out there. But here are some things that you need to be aware of before you jump into the software. And if you do decide to jump into the software, feel free to check out the link in the description down below. Now let's start off with the pros. First, you get some really beautiful interactive forms that feel like conversations, more than just boring survey templates. And the user experience is way better than traditional forms. But the downside is that the pricing can get expensive quickly, especially if you need advanced features, and their free plan is pretty limited. Now the biggest cons of Typeform, though, is that the forms look great. You do have to deal with some limitations in the beginning, especially on lower tier plans. And what I mean by that is if you want to collect a lot of responses or use advanced logic, you're going to have to pay for higher plans. Some months I love how professional my forms look, and other months I get frustrated when I hit my response limit with Typeform. I think the most responses I've gotten on a form was about like 500, but I've also had forms that barely get like 20 responses, and so I was still paying the monthly fee. Other things with Typeform that I didn't like or don't like currently is that their integrations can be a hit or miss, and sometimes the forms load so slowly on mobile devices, and unlike simpler form builders where everything just works, sometimes Typeform feels like it's trying to be too fancy when you just need basic functionality. Now with Typeform though, one thing to keep in mind is that you do have to take into account their pricing structure, which starts at, I believe, like $25 per month. It might have changed. And it's for the basic features. So you need to make sure that you're getting enough value from the improved user experience to justify the cost, because there are free alternatives that do basic forms just fine. Now with Typeform though, there can be some learning curve to it when it comes to setting up complex logic and branching. So my recommendation is that you start with simple forms first before trying to build out complicated multi-step surveys. For example, I learned to master the basics first before attempting to create forms with conditional logic and multiple outcomes. Now, here are my 3 tips for people who want to try out Typeform. First tip is to take advantage of the free trial. You can check out the link down below in the description to test it out and make sure you use it from the user experience. I think Typeform's main selling point is that I built several test forms during my trial to see how they perform compared to like regular Google Forms, for example, and I noted the differences. Second tip is plan your form structure carefully before you start building, because Typeform's conversational style works best when you have a logical flow of questions. I learned to map out my questions on like simple paper first and think about the user journey before jumping into the builder. Third tip is to monitor your response limits closely, because it's very easy to hit your monthly quota without even realizing it, especially if you have a form that does really, really well. I learned to set up notifications when I'm approaching my limits so I don't miss any responses. My rule is that if you're not getting at least 100 responses per month, Typeform probably might be too expensive for you. But with Typeform, I'd say that it's been a pretty good experience overall. The forms definitely look more professional than basic alternatives, and I've noticed a higher completion rate compared to regular surveys. Typeform customer support is also really good when you run into any technical issues. So with that being said, if you're considering Typeform, I'd say just try it out. They have a free trial. You won't know until you actually try it out, and I do have a link to the description down below for them. And maybe you might need all those fancy features, but make sure that you can justify the cost. But also, if you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.